Healing from childhood trauma is extremely difficult without friends. Without having close friends, or at least a close friend, with whom we can talk, with whom we can share and be open and tell the truth about ourselves, about what we're going through, about how we feel, about how painful it is, how alienating it is. Someone who we can tell the truth about what happened to us, what it did to us, how we felt, how we may have blocked it out for a long, long time. Someone in an emotional way who can mirror us. Someone who we know really cares about us and trusts us. I think about my time struggling to heal from my traumas of childhood and not having real friends, not having deep friends, not having friends who could relate to me. I had some people in my life who liked me, liked parts of me, liked sides of me, liked things about me, but didn't have any way to relate to what I was going through because they hadn't done it themselves. In different ways, they judged me. Maybe they were polite because they liked certain things about me or wanted to stay friends with me, but they didn't get it, and I knew that they didn't get it. They hadn't grieved. They hadn't broken away from the sick sides of their family. They hadn't confronted the sick and disturbing things about their parents. And yes, they had the same things that I had in various different ways, because sometimes I knew their parents, I knew parts of their stories, I could see their behavior, but I could see that they hadn't gone into themselves in that way. And what I learned in those friendships, limited friendships, was it wasn't really okay to be myself, warts and all, to really show who I was, because when I tried it, I often felt even more alone, felt even more rejected. Or straight up, sometimes they sided with my traumatizers because they were siding with their own traumatizers. They had become traumatizers, perhaps even, or were on the path to doing the exact same things to others that had been done to them. I was very lonely for a long time. A long, long, long time. My teen years, my 20s, when I really started opening up and waking up to how sick my family system had been, how much pain I was in, how much anguish I felt, how much longing I felt for something better. My society was disturbed. And I'm not talking about the greater society, my culture, the United States, the Western world. I'm talking about the society of my family, my nuclear family. They were my primary society. And they were the ones who were screwing me up. They were the ones who were violating me and doing terrible things to me that somehow I could just feel was wrong. It was not what I wanted. And I couldn't wake them up. I couldn't get them to see how much they were hurting me and not being there for me in a way that I desperately needed them to. And ways in which I deserved. I deserved to be treated better and with love, and so does everyone. So does every child in the world. Every child in every family deserves to be loved and respected and honored and cherished deeply and thoroughly by their parents. And if they don't get that, they're getting a really raw deal in life, and it happens to everyone to one degree or another. Some people it happens in the most obvious and extreme ways. They don't even know their parents. Their parents have physiologically created them and then just flat out rejected them. Other people, it happens within the nucleus of having parents there who violate them in all sorts of ways. Well, I think about myself trying to get my parents to be proper parents. In a way, trying to get them to be proper allies to me, friends to me, trying to get them to mirror me and see the truth of who I was, the beautiful parts of me, and also the screwed up parts of me that they were creating. They weren't having any of it. In fact, they rejected me more for it. And I started to figure out, oh, they have created me to violate, to harm in different ways, to not love properly. They weren't going to give me what they hadn't been given. They had me as a sort of addiction to block up their pain, to block up their history, to forget, to be someone they could act out on. And well, me demanding that they be better and healthier and be appropriate and love me better, well, that was exactly opposite for why they had me. And eventually, I had to get away from them. Well, getting away from them and not having anywhere to really go emotionally, relationally, societally was terrible. It was like, oh, I went from being not really loved in this system to just being all alone in a greater society that basically was just like them. And I couldn't accept that. I had to find friends. But then I think about when I started to find better people through a lot of work, a lot of searching, a lot of risk, a lot of very much opening myself up in public ways to try to attract anyone who would see the lights that I was throwing up and the flags that I was throwing up. I remember when I found my first friend, he was actually doing the same thing out in the world, putting up big flags saying, yes, I have been hurt, I have been traumatized, I am healing, my parents did this to me. And it was amazing. It was like, oh my God, a kindred spirit. It was actually a real shock to me, to my system, to my conception of relationships and of the world, to find someone else who was in so many ways like me. It's someone who I had a common perspective with, not just on what was going on inside of me, but about life, about parents, about hope. It was terribly exciting and terribly shocking because it put into perspective, it put into relief where I had come from. And I think about the time before I met him, going all the way back to the time when I really started to break away from my parents, maybe a good 10-year gap. And I just think about how much more painful my struggle was. My struggle did not by any means end when I found my first friend. And eventually I found more, some more along the way. It was still is in many ways a very, very difficult struggle. But I really think having that first friend was the formation of a new society for me. I could say a new family, a family of choice. People say that my friends are my family of choice. But really it was even more than that. It was a new society that we created together. Now I'm asking myself, before I met him, did I really have no friends? Because I think in a lot of ways I had to be a friend for myself. That's why I journaled so much. In a way, my journal became a friend to me. It was making the best of a very bad deal. It was like I had to put myself out there on paper so some part of me could be a friend to myself. I could reflect friendship and love and nurturance and acceptance and honesty back to me. Without that journal, without the ability to journal, I don't think I could have really gotten away from my family that much at all. But when I found a friend, it's like something about my healing journey went to the next level. I still journaled, I still do journal, and I still felt and feel that was and is a key part of my healing process, to have that just very private relationship between me and me, between some part of my wounded, lost, confused, traumatized, healing self and some higher, greater part of me. An interesting and almost magical thing to journal in that way, to find some solace and comfort and wisdom from a different part of myself that got channeled onto paper. But having an external person with an external eye, with external life experiences, all his own, and then later finding female friends too, and people, she could do it for me also, and realizing it wasn't just one person who could do it, but that there were others out there. There was some special something beyond journaling, beyond anything I had ever experienced, to find others who could mirror my life experience, who could be there in strength when I was in my moments of weakness. Having my first friend and my first friends propelled me more out of my family. It gave me a place to go, because I know for many years during all those painful, dry years of having no external friend, after I started to break away from my family, it was like I kept going back to my family because I was so lonely. I craved intimacy, and even their very screwed up and traumatizing intimacy sometimes was better than just being all alone. And I don't think I'm speaking just for myself here. In fact, I know I'm not speaking just for myself. I think what's so sad is I'm giving the explanation for why our world is so screwed up. People are so stuck. They have nowhere to go. They learned so long ago that there is no one. No one will be there for them. No one will grieve them when their own parents have rejected them and harmed them. And then they shut down, close off, seal over, don't love themselves, because they know at some level they've learned through painful, hard experience that if they keep trying to be open and keep trying to grieve their losses and keep trying to expect love from these impossible people, it'll just hurt worse and it'll get them nowhere. And maybe they'll go crazy and maybe they'll die. I sometimes wonder that about people I've known. I've known so many people who have literally gone crazy, lost their minds, ended up in psych wards for a long time and been forced to take terrible psychiatric treatments and get the ugliest, most extreme psychiatric diagnoses. It's like sometimes I wonder, these were the people who just couldn't give up and shut down. They had to keep fighting to get love from the impossible. And it burned them out in some way. It really drove them nuts. They really were trying to do something completely impossible, and eventually it's like they experienced system overload, processor meltdown. I've gone nuts sometimes. I think of sometimes as a teenager, into my 20s even, where it was just like I started spinning out. My mind started spinning out. It was just like, how many times can I run full speed into a cement wall and walk away unscathed? Thankfully, I didn't stay nuts. Thankfully, I had things I could do that helped me regain my sanity. For the longest time, it was journaling. I have journal entries talking about really my mind going in crazy, sad places. And it was like the journal entry brought me back to me. But then I think, what a sad life it would have been if I had never found these friends. Could I have sustained my existence with just a friend in a journal forever? I kind of don't think so. I kind of don't think I was strong enough to do it. I think I was incredibly strong enough to last as long as I did. That's a big part of why I keep coming back and making these videos. Maybe I'll reach someone. Maybe someone will hear this and find some sort of mirroring in my words, in my facial expression, in my painful life experience. Maybe it'll touch someone and they'll know that they're not alone. I sometimes wonder, how would I have reacted to seeing videos like this 30 years ago, 35 years ago? If I'd seen some random person I never met talking like this, I think it would have been such a boost to my sense of hope. I think it would have made it harder for me to shut down and go along with the program and join this sick society of my family system and the sick society of thousands and millions of other family systems that overlapped with my family system and were called greater society, were called normal, were called healthy, were called ethical, were called the right way to do things. Yet they weren't, yet they were wrong and sick and troubled and disturbed and full of lies and psychological defenses to pad against this painful truth. To be a friend for others now, to the best of my ability. Yes, in my own internet kind of way, I tried to do it here with this camera. It's also extremely difficult to be vulnerable and public, knowing that there will be people who watch this, are people who watch this, who don't like it, who are threatened by it, who hate it, who deny the fundamental aspect of my message because it so goes against their traumatizers and the traumatizers they have swallowed up and in so many different ways identified with and become. It's also a funny thing. I wonder if there are other YouTubers out there, other writers out there who experience some strange facet of popularity to the degree that I have achieved popularity. That I feel that every time I put up a new video and I see people watching it, sometimes lots of people watching it, there's a part of me that's like, oh God, I don't like this. I don't like so many people watching it. Because there's some part of me that just knows it means, oh God, there must be so much pain out there, so much sadness out there. It's a lot to bear to know this. I also think there's a real comfort for a lot of people in shutting down. For a long time, I wished I could shut down. Just shut it down entirely. Shut all the healing process down, the grieving down, the analytic process of making sense of the truth of my family system. Shut down my vision within. Shut down my observing self that saw the truth of my parents. As a kid, I just wanted to shut down and be normal. So much of me wanted to do that. I remember even saying it, I just want to be normal. I just want to get a normal girlfriend and have normal friends and be normal in terms of my career and my interests and my thoughts. Yet I wasn't. And I had this craving out there to be me and to find others like me. And early on, I thought there must be a lot of others like me. I thought if I could just go to a good university, I will find others like me. I thought intelligent people, unlike the not so intelligent people of my high school and my little town that I grew up in, oh, they didn't have it, but in college with the smart people, I will find it there. Well, I didn't find it there. What I found was a lot of smart people who had more intelligent defenses to deny the truth of what they had gone through. They were even nastier and more bullying and more hateful toward me. and just had a bigger vocabulary to be able to shoot me down and reject me. And so, the magic of finding my first friend, and my second friend, and my third friend. The magic of having allies, and starting to build a little society. And wondering, what would the world be like if there were a lot more of us? A lot more. Tens and hundreds and thousands and millions. We who really look at this stuff, who really grieve, begin to grieve, make progress at really grieving and connecting with the truth of ourselves. We may not be many now, but often I imagine what a world would be like if there were many, many, many of us. If we became the majority, what would everything be like? It would be so different. If really good, true, beautiful friends were easy to find, if we lived in a world where people could leave their traumatizers and jump into a world where they could be held by people who immediately knew what they'd been through, would hug them and love them and hold them and see them and mirror them. That's the world I envision.